Hello and welcome to BitTech. Today we've got a gaming system from Cyberpower UK to review. This isn't the first system that they've sent us recently, having previously sent us a Hyperliquid Ultra RTX system that was reviewed on the BitTech website a few months ago. But that review didn't quite go as they'd have wanted, as there were just a few finishing touches missing or just a little off, such as there being no RGB software installed on the PC at all, despite there being RGB fans. Obviously not a problem with this one though, with MSI's Mystic Light having been installed, allowing me to set the LEDs up in BitTech Purple. Now, they themselves weren't happy with it, not with how we'd reviewed it, just at the stupid little errors that they'd made.
No, that's not what I meant.
Like there was a fan cable trailing across the rear I/O covers, just little bits that they were quite upset that they'd missed, and they'd said, well, it had been a challenging couple of years and standards maybe had slipped, and they were putting things in place to try and address that. Being fair, we said, okay, yeah, sure, send us another system, and that's how we've ended up with this Onyxia 3 gaming system. Now, when it arrived, it was very nicely packaged, nice and secure. It had one of those expandable foam bits in the front, so everything arrived in one piece. All the cables were plugged in where they should be. None had even come loose in transit, as they've used quite a number of zip ties to secure them in place and make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen. So the specs in this machine we're looking at today is an Intel 10700K, an MSI Z490A Pro motherboard, a 16GB kit of 3200 Corsair Vengeance RAM, which is a 2x8 kit, an MSI RTX 3080 Ventus 3X OC LHR, try saying that one after a few, an Intel 670p 1TB M.2 NVMe drive, a Cooler Master Master Liquid Light 240, a Corsair RM750 Gold PSU to power it all housed in Cyberpower's Onyxia 3 gaming case, into which they've installed Cooler Master MF120 Halo fans, including on the CPU cooler. It comes with Windows 10 installed and costs £1,999, including VAT. Their standard warranty covers 5 years labour, 2 years parts, 6 months collect and return, plus lifetime technical support. So it's got some fairly hefty specs then. As the first system to be put through our brand new benchmark suite, I'll be putting it up against our test bench, which has a 5800X and 3070, and also my own personal rig, which has a 3700X and 5700 GPU. Now, I don't expect that to keep up with this, but it does have the advantage of full custom water cooling, and being of older spec, it might be similar to something you're currently running and looking to upgrade from, and will give you more of an idea of whether the upgrade would be worth it for you. I'm not going to read all the results out, as I'm sure you're perfectly capable of reading the results yourself, so we'll just run through the benchmark graphs and then we'll recap at the end. So no real surprises in the results there. The test bench with its faster 5800X leading in the CPU heavy benchmarks, and then the Cyberpower system and its 3080 coming out on top in the gaming and GPU heavy benchmarks. While there aren't really any performance problems, there is some questions as to hardware choices, such as this case, which I've just realised I've left the protective film on. Right, that's a bit better. Now, as I was saying, this case is a bit of a cheap case for a £2,000 computer. I think for like a budget £600 or £700 one where you're looking to save money where you can and isn't going to be that powerful, I think this would be more than suitable for that. But for £2,000 I'd want something that's a bit more premium, which they do have. The front glass is pretty loose. These are just mounted with those push-in tabs that you'd normally find on like front panels, not really holding in heavy tempered glass. The roof filter is pretty thick, and it's going to be tricky for those fans to get air through the radiator and then through that mesh, which is a bit strange because the mesh in the front and the mesh that is in the filter underneath is fine, but is predominantly air, predominantly gaps, and has plenty of airflow through it. And whilst that filter on the bottom is removable for cleaning, you do have to tip the case onto its back to get it off. So if you've got it stowed in a place that's not particularly great to get to, you're going to have to unplug everything, pull the case out, get it on its back, pull it off, clean it, and then plug everything back in, which is going to be a bit of a pain. The cooler is a bit of a cheap one as well. I mean, it's done the job relatively well, to be honest. The max temperature in the CPU stress test after I think 15 minutes of Cinebench was 81C. The fans are Cooler Master ML120 Halo fans, and they look decent, but they haven't got the best specs to them. Only getting 47 CFM and 1.6mm H2O at 1800 RPM, at which point they're pushing 30 decibels. Now, they're not like that cheap, but they're also not that expensive. But they must have got an absolute cracking deal on them from Cooler Master, because they use them in pretty much everything. The £6,000 custom water-cooled system that we had in to review previously had these fans on, and these are not something I personally would use on full custom water cooling, especially when you're trying to cool a 5950X and a 3090 with just a 360 rad. The whole system only got up to, I think it was about 41 decibels in the longer CPU stress test, and about 36, 37 in the gaming stress test, in times by stress test, which isn't too bad. Their cable managed very well. They all go into a single Cooler Master hub in the back, and cable management as a whole throughout the case has been done very well. You might find it odd that the system was louder when only the CPU was being stressed than in the gaming stress test when both CPU and GPU are under load, especially as those GPUs chuck out an awful lot of heat. But all 6 fans in the case are connected to a single fan hub, which is then controlled from the CPU temperature. So unless that CPU is getting absolutely loaded up and heating up, then the fans just aren't going to ramp up as much, and that could affect your gaming performance. I would have liked to have seen one or two of the intake fans, and definitely this rear exhaust fan connected separately and controlled from the GPU temperature. So in CPU light, GPU heavy workloads like a lot of games, the GPU is going to get a good supply of fresh air, and that hot air is getting exhausted out, and it not having to rely on that CPU getting hot before it starts getting some decent airflow. The 10700K might seem like an odd choice, especially with the 11 series being out and the 12 series Alder Lake right round the corner, but the 10700K is still a very capable CPU, especially when it comes to gaming. So a saving of £100 over an 11700K and Z590A Pro from MSI, I don't think it's that bad of an option to go for. In terms of general setup, there wasn't a single Windows update to be done when I first loaded up, which was fantastic. The NVIDIA drivers were a couple of versions old, but one had only just come out, and when contacted, Cyberpower said that it was because they do quite a bit of testing on GPU drivers to make sure that they know that they are safe and stable before pushing them to customer machines. They also said that it's more a sort of hangover from days gone by where you might not discover a problem or hear of a problem for quite a while, and with these things normally being found out quicker, they might need to address that. But I think it's fair enough for them to want to be sure that what they're putting onto a customer system won't cause them any problems with any of the games they want to run. The Wi-Fi card is all set up and ready to go. I think it's great that they included one, as the motherboard doesn't have it itself, and not everybody is gonna have hardline plugs or access to a LAN cable to get internet on there. And I think it's great that they ensure that people will be able to get onto the internet whatever their home setup. I love that they included a little PC speaker. I really like getting that little beep when I turn my computer on, just so I know that everything is okay. I didn't like that it wasn't turned on in the BIOS, so after seeing that and turning the computer on, I may have cacked my pants a little bit that there was no beep until I got to that post screen and everything was okay. Everything else in the BIOS was fine though. XMP was enabled on the memory, so that was running at its rated speed, and everything else like boot priorities etc. was set up fine. So really that just brings us to the price and its value. At £2,000 it's not cheap. If we leave the GPU to the side for a minute, for the rest of the components in this case, it would be about £850 to £900. So you're paying them essentially £1,100, let's say, for that 3080 for them to put the computer together, for a copy of Windows, install it and make sure everything is set up and working correctly. Which may seem like a lot, but that's about the cost of a 3080 alone if you were able to find one. Of all the 3080s I could find in stock on the day of filming, the cheapest one I could find was £1,130, with most being £1,200. So, as mad as it seems, at the minute, if you're after an entirely new computer, this is actually pretty decent value. I would like to see them use a better case at this price point. It doesn't even have to be a super premium case, just £70 to £80 would get you a really nice, well-performing case. I think if you spent £2,000 on a computer and this turns up with its rattly panels and its slightly cheaper feel, you're gonna be disappointed. But overall, the build quality is really good, the cable management is excellent, the performance is exactly where I'd expect it to be, and in today's mad world, it's actually pretty decent value as well. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We've got loads more reviews on the way, as well as mods from Alessandro and Mod of the Month, so make sure you subscribe and you won't miss out on any of that. If you've liked today's review, give it a thumbs up and comment down below, would you ever consider buying a complete system, and who would you buy that system from? You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter for all your latest tech news and reviews, links of which are down below. There you'll also find a link to our Discord server and our merchandise store, where you can pick up a cool t-shirt, sweatshirt or hoodie, as well as your very own BitTech mug. So that's it from me and the Cyberpower Onyxia 3 gaming system. I'll be back soon with another review. Until then, take care folks, and don't forget to remove your protection. See you then. Oh wait, no!